The first ship vanished without an explosion. No alarms sounded across the bridge of the Dominion flagship. No debris struck the hull. One moment the destroyer Varkesh was there, gliding beside the fleet in perfect formation beneath the cold glow of distant stars, and the next moment it simply ceased to exist. The tactical display flickered once, removing the vessel from formation as if some invisible hand had erased it from reality. Admiral Kaler rose slowly from his command throne, the metallic claws on his gauntlet tightening against the armrest. Around him, officers exchanged confused glances while long-range scanners swept the darkness again and again, searching for wreckage, radiation, or distortion signatures. They found nothing. The destroyer had not been destroyed. It had disappeared. "Explain," Kaler demanded. The bridge remained silent for 2 full seconds before Sensor Master Vel replied carefully. "No weapons discharge detected. No warp fracture. No energy surge of any kind." His throat tightened visibly. "It is as if the vessel was removed." Kaler hated fear in his officers. Fear spread faster than fire inside war fleets. Ahead of them stretched the dead halo, a massive ring of abandoned stations, shattered moons, and ancient beacon towers orbiting the outer edge of soul space. Most civilizations avoided it completely. For 6,000 years, no empire had crossed beyond the halo and returned unchanged. Entire religions had formed around the warnings buried there. Kaler considered them myths invented by weak species frightened of ghosts. Now one of his warships was gone. The ancient beacon directly ahead of the fleet suddenly activated. Dust-covered panels unfolded across its surface while dead lights burned awake one by one, illuminating symbols older than the Dominion itself. Static flooded every communication channel before a cold mechanical voice echoed through the bridge. Final warning issued. Turn back immediately. Several officers froze. The translation came instantly afterward in Dominion Standard. Humanity must not be provoked. Kaler almost laughed. The words sounded absurd. Humanity. One isolated species hiding inside a single star system at the edge of civilized space. A fractured race famous for internal wars, unstable governments, and primitive diplomacy. Dominion intelligence reports describe them as emotionally volatile but strategically insignificant. They possessed no interstellar empire, no expansion fleets, no known conquest campaigns, and yet the ancients had built an entire forbidden zone around them. Another dead civilization trying to frighten the living, Kaler muttered. But before anyone could respond, every screen on the bridge abruptly changed. Not hacked, overwritten. A recording appeared across the central display. The footage was ancient, degraded by thousands of years, but the terror inside it remained horrifyingly clear. A massive alien fleet burned above a blue world. Not Earth, something else. The ships in the recording were larger than entire cities, their hulls covered in symbols belonging to a civilization long erased from galactic history. The footage shook violently as screams echoed through distorted comms. Then the camera turned toward the planet below. The oceans themselves were on fire. Continents split apart beneath orbital bombardment while clouds of ash swallowed entire hemispheres. Yet somehow, impossibly, ships still rose from the dying surface. Thousands of them. Crude. Uneven. Built during war. Built during extinction. The recording ended with one final line translated into every known language simultaneously. They do not stop. The bridge fell silent. For the first time since entering the dead halo, Kaler felt something small and cold move through his chest. Not fear. Instinct. Then the fleet proximity alarms exploded across the bridge. Every officer snapped toward the forward display as the dead moon ahead of them cracked open across its equator. Something enormous was waking inside it, and the voice that emerged from the darkness did not sound ancient. It sounded human. You crossed the line. The moon split apart like a shell around something that had been waiting far too long. Chunks of black rock drifted silently into space while colossal mechanical structures unfolded from beneath the surface layer. Massive rings rotated around a central core glowing with deep crimson light, and for a brief moment Admiral Kaler thought he was staring at an ancient planetary weapon left behind by some extinct civilization. Then the scans returned. Biological heat signatures. Human. Thousands of them. The bridge of the Dominion flagship descended into overlapping reports as officers tried to process what they were seeing. Hidden reactors larger than cities powered up beneath the fractured moon. Weapon arrays emerged from underground silos. Entire defense platforms materialized from what had appeared to be lifeless debris only minutes earlier. The dead halo had never been dead. It had been watching. "Admiral," Sensor Master Vel said carefully, "these structures are older than our empire by several millennia." Kaler's eyes narrowed. "Impossible." "Confirmed." Vel swallowed. "And they are still operational." The crimson glow intensified across the shattered moon before a transmission signal pierced every encrypted Dominion channel simultaneously. Whoever controlled the structure had bypassed military encryption without resistance. A face appeared across the central display. Human. Older than Kaler expected. Gray streaks cut through dark hair pulled tightly behind the woman's head. A faded combat jacket rested across her shoulders, marked not with medals or rank insignias, but with burned scars. One side of her face carried the pale remnants of old radiation damage. Yet none of that held the bridge's attention. It was her eyes. Calm. Not nervous. Not angry. Not afraid. Prepared. "You entered restricted territory 3 hours ago," the woman said evenly. "You ignored 9 warning beacons, crossed 2 exclusion boundaries, and deployed active combat scans against defensive infrastructure." She leaned slightly forward. "So now I need to know whether you're arrogant or suicidal." Kaler felt irritation burn away the unease crawling beneath his skin. "I am Fleet Admiral Kaler of the Dominion Ascendancy," he declared. "Your territory now falls under Dominion claim. Power down your defenses immediately and surrender control of this system." Several Dominion officers straightened confidently at the familiar speech. The words had broken worlds before. The woman on the screen stared at him in complete silence. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. Not mockingly. Almost tired. "You really have no idea where you are." The transmission feed abruptly shifted. The Dominion bridge display zoomed outward from the shattered moon toward the surrounding halo. Kaler watched millions of drifting debris fragments highlight themselves across the tactical grid one by one. Asteroids. Wreckage. Broken stations. Dead satellites. Every single object turned red. Vel's voice became unsteady. "Admiral, I am detecting power signatures everywhere." The tactical map filled with thousands upon thousands of hidden contacts. Weapons. Ships. Defense stations. Factories. Entire fleets hidden inside debris fields older than recorded Dominion history. Kaler's pulse slowed. Not from calmness. From calculation. No civilization hid military infrastructure on this scale unless they expected war. Long war. The human woman folded her hands behind her back while the display continued updating. "Your species believes power comes from conquest," she said quietly. Humans learned something different. More contacts appeared. Beneath dead moons. Inside asteroids. Buried within drifting ship graveyards. Some of the structures were so massive the Dominion sensors struggled to classify them. "What are we looking at?" one Dominion officer whispered. The woman answered him directly. "The line." Kaler frowned. "You keep repeating that phrase." Her eyes locked onto his. "Because every species in this galaxy eventually crosses it." Without warning, the display changed again. Now Kaler saw another fleet. Not Dominion. Ancient. Hundreds of warships surrounded a blue-green planet, while orbital fire consumed entire continents. The footage resembled the earlier recording but from another angle. Then humanity answered. Not with fleets. With the planet itself. The oceans opened. Massive structures rose from beneath the waterline while mountain ranges split apart across continents. The entire world transformed into a weapon platform in real time. Enemy fleets vanished in flashes of white light so bright the recording sensors partially failed trying to compensate. Kaler watched 27 capital ships disappear in less than 4 seconds. No debris remained. The footage ended. Silence consumed the Dominion bridge. Then the human woman spoke again. "You know what terrified the ancients?" she asked softly. It wasn't human technology. Her expression hardened slightly. It was what happened after we survived extinction. Kaler kept his face controlled despite the pressure tightening behind his ribs. You expect me to believe your species defeated the ancients? No, she replied. I expect you to understand why they tried to bury us. Suddenly, every Dominion sensor station erupted with warning signals. Incoming targets. Thousands of them. Not weapons. Ships. Human warships were emerging from every corner of the halo simultaneously. But what truly froze the bridge was their formation. Perfect. Not chaotic. Not rushed. As though humanity had known the exact moment the Dominion fleet would arrive long before Kaler himself had given the order to enter soul space. And deep beneath the fractured moon, something even larger began powering online. The thing awakening beneath the moon was bigger than the Dominion flagship. At first the scanners refused to classify it. The object hidden beneath layers of ancient alloy and artificial stone extended deeper into the moon's core than physics should have allowed. Reactor readings climbed beyond military scale, pushing directly into stellar output territory. And suddenly every officer on Kaler's bridge understood the same horrifying truth at once. The moon itself had never been natural. It had been armor, a containment shell, energy spike exceeding containment thresholds. Vel warned, his voice tightening. If that structure fully activates, I cannot predict the output. Kaler ignored him. His eyes remained fixed on the tactical display as more human warships emerged from darkness. They did not arrive through warp signatures or hyperspace fractures. They simply appeared, gliding silently out from debris fields, abandoned stations, and shadows cast by shattered worlds. Stealth technology. Not defensive stealth. Predatory stealth. The realization unsettled him more than the weapons themselves. Predators hid before attacking. Admiral, one of the navigation officers suddenly said, Our retreat vectors are no longer valid. Kaler turned sharply. Explain. The officer's hands moved rapidly across his console. The gravitational map of this region has changed. Entire mass signatures are appearing where empty space should be. His voice dropped lower. The route we entered through no longer exists. For the first time in decades, Kaler felt genuine uncertainty crawl through his thoughts. That should have been impossible. Space itself did not simply rearrange. The human woman remained on screen watching them process the information. She showed no satisfaction, no arrogance. If anything, her expression carried the quiet patience of someone watching a child finally understand danger too late. You built a maze, Kaler said slowly. We built layers, she corrected. The moon behind her pulsed again. Across the bridge, Dominion systems suddenly began malfunctioning in sequence. Tactical overlays flickered. Internal communications desynchronized. Targeting systems displayed false coordinates before correcting themselves a second later. Vel's face lost color. Admiral, our network has been compromised. Kaler stepped toward him instantly. By what? That's the problem, Vel whispered. I don't know when it happened. A cold silence spread across the bridge. The Dominion Ascendancy possessed some of the most advanced military encryption systems in known space. Entire empires had failed trying to breach them. Yet now human interference moved through Dominion systems like a disease that had already reached the bloodstream before symptoms appeared. The woman answered before Kaler could demand explanations. You started losing control before you crossed the halo. The words landed harder than any threat. Kaler stared at her. You infiltrated Dominion systems before contact? We infiltrated your systems before your fleet even launched. Several officers visibly stiffened. Impossible. It had to be impossible. Yet the evidence surrounded them. Every intelligence report about humanity now felt poisoned. Every tactical assumption. Every map. Every projection. Kaler suddenly understood something that made his stomach tighten. Humanity had not reacted to the invasion. Humanity had prepared for it. How long? He asked quietly. The woman tilted her head slightly. Long enough. The bridge lights dimmed for half a second before emergency systems stabilized power distribution. Outside the viewport, more dead structures awakened throughout the halo. Ancient stations rotated toward the Dominion fleet while hidden weapon arrays unfolded from beneath centuries of drifting wreckage. The graveyard surrounding Sol was becoming an active battlefield. But the humans still had not fired. That unsettled Kaler more than open war would have. Most species panicked when threatened. Most civilizations reacted emotionally once invasion fleets entered their territory. Humans were doing neither. They were controlling tempo, controlling information, controlling fear. Kaler hated opponents who understood psychological warfare. Then another transmission interrupted the bridge. Not from the woman. From deeper inside the halo. The signal appeared corrupted at first before stabilizing into Old Dominion military frequencies. Kaler's blood chilled as dead voices filled the bridge speakers. Dominion voices. Missing fleets. Entire expeditions lost centuries earlier near forbidden regions of space. We thought we could push deeper. They watched us the entire time. Do not threaten Earth. Static screamed through the transmission before another voice cut in sharply. If they ever stop showing mercy. The recording ended violently. Bridge silence followed. Kaler slowly looked toward Vel. Authenticate. Vel's claws trembled against his console. The recordings are real. Another officer spoke before thinking. Then why didn't they destroy those fleets? The human woman answered immediately. Because they left. Her calmness was becoming unbearable. Kaler folded his arms behind his back to hide the tension building through his muscles. He had commanded extermination campaigns. He had watched species beg for survival while Dominion fleets burned their worlds from orbit. But this felt different. This was not a civilization desperate to survive. This was a civilization fully capable of destruction choosing restraint. And restraint only mattered when backed by overwhelming force. Suddenly the massive structure beneath the moon finished powering online. The fractured surface split apart completely as something colossal rose slowly from the core. Layer after layer of ancient armored plating unfolded outward, revealing a black circular construct so enormous, it eclipsed entire warships around it. No visible weapons. No engines. Just a single burning red aperture at its center. Vel stared at the readings in horror. Admiral? His voice nearly failed him. That is not a defense station. Kaler's eyes narrowed. Then what is it? Before Vel could answer, the human woman finally lost her faint smile. That, she said softly, is why nobody gets a second warning. The aperture opened. Not quickly. Not dramatically. The massive black construct rising from the moon unfolded with terrifying calmness. Like something designed long ago for a purpose so absolute it no longer required intimidation. Rings of ancient metal rotated around the crimson center, while streams of glowing energy moved through channels carved across its surface like blood through veins. Every Dominion ship immediately received the same automated targeting alert. Lock acquired. The warning repeated 3 times before vanishing. Kaler stood motionless at the center of the bridge while officers fought to maintain composure. Across the tactical display, the giant construct tracked the entire Dominion fleet simultaneously. Not one ship escaped the targeting cone. Not even the stealth frigates hiding behind larger cruisers. How many weapons signatures? Kaler asked. Vel's hands trembled over the sensor controls. None. Kaler turned sharply. Explain. There are no detectable weapon systems, Vel whispered. No launch bays. No particle emitters. No spinal cannons. His breathing slowed uneasily. Admiral, I do not understand what this thing is. That answer disturbed Kaler more than confirmation of firepower would have. Military logic depended on understanding threat categories. This construct fit none. The human commander remained on screen, illuminated faintly by the crimson glow behind her. You came here expecting another frightened civilization, she said. You expected negotiation after intimidation. Her expression hardened slightly. That strategy only works against species afraid to lose. Kaler finally stepped forward. And you are not? The woman held his gaze without hesitation. We survived our extinction events. The words carried no pride, only fact. Kaler felt irritation flare again beneath the pressure building inside his chest. Humanity's confidence had crossed beyond arrogance into something worse. Certainty. No species should sound that calm while facing a Dominion invasion fleet. He refused to believe in invincibility. All fleets prepare combat formations, Kaler ordered sharply. Forward divisions advance. I want firing solutions on every visible platform. Across the bridge, Dominion officers moved instantly. Formation grids shifted as hundreds of warships adjusted vectors in perfect synchronization. Heavy cruisers rotated forward while carrier groups spread into attack patterns refined through centuries of conquest. The familiar movement steadied the bridge atmosphere immediately. Military order. Predictable strength. Something solid. Yet the humans still did nothing. No panic. No scrambling. The massive construct continued staring at the fleet like a giant mechanical eye. Kaler narrowed his gaze. They want us nervous, he said quietly. Which means they still fear escalation. The human woman actually sighed. You still think this is escalation? Before Kaler could answer, another Dominion officer snapped toward his station. Admiral, High Command transmission incoming. The face of Supreme Executor Theric appeared above the bridge in towering holographic form. Even through transmission distortion, the ancient warlord radiated fury. Explain this delay, Theric demanded. Kaler straightened instantly. Unexpected human defensive infrastructure, Supreme Executor. We are assessing tactical. You were sent to conquer primitives, not hide behind caution. Kaler's jaw tightened slightly. These are not primitives. Silence hit the bridge. Even the human commander seemed interested now. Theric's eyes narrowed dangerously. Your fear dishonors the Dominion. Kaler controlled his breathing carefully. Fear has nothing to do with this. Humanity prepared this battlefield long before our arrival. Then crush their preparation. Theric leaned forward. You command 1,200 warships. They command shadows and debris. The transmission ended before Kaler could respond. The bridge remained silent for several seconds. Then the human commander spoke softly. There it is. Kaler looked toward her coldly. What? The reason empires always fail. Her eyes drifted briefly toward the dead moon surrounding them. People at the top stopped listening to reality. Kaler ignored the remark. Forward strike group, he ordered. Deploy precision bombardment against the nearest defense platform. Limited yield. I want to see how they respond. Several officers hesitated. That alone angered him. Dominion crews did not hesitate. Yet fear had already entered the bridge. A moment later, 30 Dominion attack cruisers surged forward from formation. Their engines burned blue-white against the darkness while heavy plasma lances charged across their hulls. The human commander did not react. Neither did the construct. Then the Dominion ships fired. Brilliant streams of plasma ripped across space toward one of the awakened halo stations. The blast should have vaporized the ancient structure instantly. Instead, the beams disappeared. Not blocked. Gone. The bridge alarm screamed. All 30 attack cruisers vanished from sensors simultaneously. No explosion. No debris. Nothing. 1 second they existed. The next second empty space replaced them. Bridge silence shattered under panicked reports. Contact loss. No energy surge detected. Where did they go? Vel stared at the tactical display in horror. They were erased. Kaler felt genuine cold move through his spine. The human commander finally stepped closer to the screen. We gave your species warning beacons. Her voice remained calm, but something beneath it had hardened. We gave you exclusion zones. We gave you time to leave. Her eyes locked onto his. You fired first. Then, for the first time, Kaler noticed movement behind her. Human officers. Dozens of them. None looked afraid. None even looked surprised. They looked prepared. As if this exact sequence had already been anticipated years earlier. The realization hit Kaler harder than the destroyed ships. Humanity wasn't improvising. This was procedure. Then every screen on the bridge suddenly changed again. A countdown appeared. 59 minutes and 58 seconds. Vel's face went pale. "Admiral," his voice cracked slightly, "I think that's for us." And somewhere deep inside the massive construct beneath the moon, something else began waking up. The countdown continued in absolute silence. 59 minutes and 41 seconds. No music. No alarms. No threats. Just numbers falling steadily across every Dominion screen, while the giant construct beneath the shattered moon pulsed with slow crimson light like the heartbeat of something ancient and awake. Kaler forced himself to remain still. Fear inside command structures spread through tiny things first. A twitch. Pause in breathing. One uncertain glance from leadership could infect an entire fleet faster than enemy fire. But this situation was slipping beyond military logic. 30 Dominion cruisers had vanished without resistance, wreckage, or detectable weapon discharge. Entire sensor arrays now contradicted established physics. Human infrastructure hidden for centuries surrounded them from every direction. And the humans still had not launched a real attack. That fact kept clawing at Kaler's thoughts. The woman on screen watched the bridge carefully, studying reactions with the calm focus of someone measuring pressure fractures inside a dam. "You don't want war," Kaler said suddenly. Several officers looked toward him in surprise. The woman tilted her head slightly. "No species should. Yet you prepared for it. We prepared for you." The answer landed like metal striking bone. Kaler stepped closer to the display. "Impossible. Our expansion routes were classified." The woman's expression darkened slightly. "You think your empire was the first?" she asked quietly. "The Dominion is only the latest civilization to mistake restraint for weakness." The countdown continued. 58 minutes and 2 seconds. Behind Kaler, Sensor Master Vel suddenly inhaled sharply. "Admiral, I finished partial translation of the ancient archive signal." Kaler didn't look away from the screen. "Report." Vel hesitated. Then his voice lowered. The warnings were incomplete. Now even the human commander seemed interested. Vel swallowed hard while ancient symbols rotated across his display. "The original archive does not describe humanity as conquerors." He looked up slowly. "It describes them as survivors." The bridge fell quiet again. Kaler frowned. "Explain." Vel activated the recovered archive. This time the footage was clearer. A different galaxy, different stars. Ancient fleets burning across thousands of worlds while entire civilizations collapsed beneath impossible war. The recording moved rapidly through scenes of devastation before stopping on a primitive blue planet. Earth. But not modern Earth. The humans in the footage had barely reached orbit. Primitive ships. Chemical rockets. No interstellar capability. Yet surrounding the planet were alien warships large enough to darken continents. The bridge officers watched silently as orbital fire rained toward Earth's surface. Then the recording changed. The invaders vanished. Not all at once. Systematically. One fleet after another disappeared over the course of years. Primitive humanity adapted stolen technology at terrifying speed. Human vessels evolved every few months. Weapons changed. Strategies changed. Entire alien formations became obsolete before battles even ended. The footage accelerated. Years passed in seconds. Human ships multiplied. Expanded, hunted, not because humanity was stronger initially, because humanity learned faster than the civilizations attacking it. Vel's voice became strained. The archive claims the ancients attacked humanity before humans became interstellar. Kaler stared at the footage. "That's impossible." "No," the human commander said softly. "It's history." The recording shifted again. Now entire alien worlds burned beneath human retaliation fleets. Not out of conquest. Not expansion. Punishment. The archive translation continued. "Do not force humanity into extinction conditions. Once survival becomes their primary objective, escalation limits collapse completely." Several Dominion officers exchanged deeply uneasy glances. Kaler felt his chest tighten slightly. The wording mattered. Not if survival became impossible. When survival became primary. As though humanity fundamentally transformed under existential threat. The recording reached its final segment. Ancient alien diplomats stood before human representatives during ceasefire negotiations. The humans looked exhausted, scarred, furious, victorious. The archive ended with one final untranslated phrase. Vel processed it slowly. Then his face lost all remaining color. Admiral? His voice nearly failed him. The warning says humanity's greatest weapon is not technology. Kaler stared at him. What is it? Vel looked toward the human commander with visible unease. They remove limits faster than other species. Silence. Heavy. Absolute. The human commander finally stepped fully into view again. You know why the ancients feared us? She asked quietly. Because every civilization assumes there's a line nobody crosses. The countdown reached 56 minutes and 11 seconds. Outside the viewport, more structures awakened throughout the halo. Massive silhouettes emerged from darkness so enormous they distorted local gravity readings. Entire debris fields shifted position like pieces on a tactical board. Kaler realized with growing dread that the humans were still revealing only fragments of their defenses. How many fleets? He asked carefully. The woman gave him an unreadable look. You still think this is a fleet war? Then she activated something. The tactical display zoomed outward from the halo. Past Earth. Past Mars. Past the gas giants. Every moon, asteroid belt, mining station, relay platform, and drifting wreck throughout the Sol system suddenly lit up simultaneously with hidden military signatures. Millions of them. Factories, shipyards, weapons platforms, deep space launch systems. Entire civilian infrastructure layers transforming into military architecture in real time. Kaler felt his pulse slow. Not from calmness. From shock. Humanity had militarized the entire solar system. Not visibly. Quietly. Patiently. For generations. This, Vel whispered. This cannot be hidden from galactic intelligence. The human commander finally smiled again. This time there was no warmth in it. That's because you think spies matter more than patterns. She looked directly into Kaler's eyes. We let the galaxy see exactly what it expected to see. Then the giant construct beneath the moon rotated slightly toward the Dominion fleet. The crimson aperture widened. And for the first time since entering Sol space, the human commander's voice lost its calmness. You crossed the line humanity buried entire civilizations trying to defend. Her eyes hardened into something cold enough to freeze the bridge itself. And you still haven't met our military. The countdown stopped at exactly 55 minutes. Then every human warship in the system powered weapons simultaneously. The sudden surge of energy nearly blinded Dominion sensors. Across the Sol system, millions of hidden signatures ignited together like stars being born all at once. The darkness between planets vanished beneath oceans of targeting lines, encrypted military traffic, and gravitational distortions so violent they bent sensor imaging into static. Kaler had commanded fleets for 32 cycles. He had witnessed planetary exterminations, civil wars, machine uprisings. He had once watched an entire moon split apart during a siege and still managed to maintain operational control. Nothing in his military life prepared him for what he was seeing now. Because this was not merely defense. It was mobilization on a civilizational scale. Every human structure was changing. Mining stations unfolded into weapon arrays. Commercial cargo routes reorganized into military supply corridors within seconds. Civilian transports vanished into hidden launch tunnels carved inside asteroids. Entire orbital cities rotated apart, exposing layers of armored infrastructure beneath peaceful exteriors. Humanity had not built a military around civilization. They had turned civilization itself into a military system. Admiral, Vel whispered hoarsely. New hyperspace ruptures detected. Kaler snapped toward the tactical display. More ships were arriving. Not dozens. Thousands. Human vessels emerged silently from hidden transit corridors throughout the outer system. Some were sleek and predatory. Others looked ancient, scarred, almost improvised. Massive carriers drifted beside ugly industrial war platforms covered in weapon scars older than most Dominion nations. None matched a unified design philosophy that unsettled Kaler more than uniformity would have. These ships came from different eras, different wars, different doctrines. Humanity had not replaced old weapons. They had kept everything. The bridge trembled softly. Weapons locks multiplied across Dominion formations. 3,000, 7,000, 12,000. Every second the number climbed higher. Several Dominion officers began breathing harder. One young tactical coordinator finally lost composure entirely. "Admiral, we cannot survive this engagement." Kaler rounded on him instantly. "Control yourself." But the officer was not wrong. For the first time in Dominion history, an invasion fleet had become prey. The human commander reappeared on screen, though now she stood inside a vastly larger chamber filled with layered holographic displays. Behind her, hundreds of officers coordinated fleet movements with terrifying precision. Nobody shouted. Nobody panicked. That disturbed Kaler almost as much as the weapons. These people had expected this day for a very long time. "You are witnessing Protocol Black," the commander said calmly. "Full spectrum extinction response." Kaler narrowed his eyes. "Extinction response against one fleet? One fleet doesn't concern us," she replied. The statement hit harder than any threat. Kaler suddenly understood something horrifying. The humans were not reacting to his armada specifically. They were reacting to the possibility of future escalation. This entire response existed because humanity assumed any hostile species would eventually return stronger. The Dominion fleet was merely the trigger. "Admiral," Vel whispered again, "I am detecting massive data transmissions leaving Sol space." The human commander nodded slightly. "Yes, we're contacting your empire." Kaler stiffened. "You're threatening civilian worlds?" "No," her expression sharpened. "We're informing them." The tactical display shifted again. Dominion territory appeared across the screen. Every major military world, every fleet hub, every strategic relay. Human intelligence overlays covered them all with frightening detail. Kaler felt genuine fear touch him for the first time. Not because humanity knew military positions, because they knew economic supply routes, agricultural dependencies, population distributions, political fractures. The humans had mapped the Dominion completely. "How long?" Kaler asked quietly. The commander studied him for a moment. 16 years. Several officers stared in disbelief. 16 years. Before the Dominion even approached Sol space. Humanity had been studying them, preparing, building, waiting. Kaler's thoughts raced violently now. Everything the Dominion knew about humanity had been fabricated. Their weakness, their divisions, their limited military presence, their internal instability. Every single thing had been allowed, manufactured, fed deliberately into Dominion intelligence channels. "We monitored your expansion pattern," the commander continued. "Every conquered species, every extermination campaign, every slave world." Her voice remained level, but something colder hid underneath it now. "You mistake patience for passivity. That mistake ends today." Suddenly another alarm erupted across the bridge. "Admiral!" shouted a sensor officer. "Unknown objects entering close-range proximity." Kaler turned sharply. The tactical display zoomed inward. Dozens of small signals had appeared directly inside Dominion formations. No hyperspace rupture. No detectable approach. They were simply there. Human boarding craft. Thousands of them. The bridge atmosphere changed instantly, because every officer understood the implication. Human forces had penetrated fleet formation without detection. Kaler's military instincts activated immediately. "All ships defensive." "Don't!" The human commander interrupted quietly. Kaler stopped. Not because of the warning, because her expression had changed. The calm professionalism remained, but underneath it now sat something grim. "Final. You still don't understand your situation, she said. This is the last moment your fleet exists intact. Outside the flagship viewport, one of the Dominion destroyers suddenly disappeared. No explosion. No debris. Gone. The surrounding ships recoiled instinctively. Then another vanished. Then another. Entire warships erased silently from existence while human targeting systems remained locked across every remaining vessel. Panic finally spread openly through the bridge. What are they doing? Someone shouted. No energy discharge detected. It's impossible. Kaler stared at the empty regions where his ships had existed seconds earlier. The human commander answered before anyone could ask again. Localized stellar compression weapons. Even Vel looked horrified now. You weaponized gravity itself? No, the commander corrected softly. We weaponized stars. Then another Dominion cruiser collapsed inward like crushed paper before vanishing into microscopic light. The bridge fell into chaos. Several officers began shouting surrender recommendations simultaneously. Others demanded immediate retreat. One demanded full weapons release before they were annihilated. Kaler remained silent, because none of the options mattered anymore. For the first time in Dominion history, superiority no longer belonged to the species willing to use greater violence. It belonged to the species that had already imagined worse violence than anyone else could survive. The human commander leaned slightly closer to the screen. We gave your fleet every opportunity to leave peacefully. Her eyes locked onto Kaler's. Now you need to decide whether your pride is worth 1,000,000 lives. Kaler opened his mouth to respond. Then every light on the bridge turned blood red. A new signal had appeared beyond the edge of the solar system. Something enormous. Something so massive Dominion sensors could not calculate its scale correctly. And according to the rapidly translating human military designation, it was only a deterrence vessel. Nobody on the bridge spoke. Not because discipline held them silent. Because the thing emerging beyond the edge of soul space had shattered their ability to process what they were seeing. The object moved slowly through darkness, larger than some moons, wrapped in layers of gravitational distortion that bent surrounding starlight into warped rings. Entire sensor grids malfunctioned trying to define its dimensions. At first, the Dominion believed it was a mobile station. Then the readings updated. It was accelerating, not with engines, with manipulated gravity itself. Kaler felt an unfamiliar sensation tightening behind his ribs. Instinct. The oldest survival instinct any intelligent creature possessed. Run. Identification confirmed. Vel whispered, her voice almost breaking. Human strategic vessel designation. Judgment class deterrent platform. Deterrent. The word itself carried terrifying implications. If humanity called this a deterrent, then what did they call an actual warship? Across the bridge, Dominion officers stared at tactical overlays showing impossible energy readings climbing higher every second. Several systems had already stopped displaying numbers entirely, replacing calculations with cascading error symbols. The computers literally could not measure the weapon output approaching their fleet. The human commander remained on screen, calm as ever. You are currently witnessing a restrained military response, she said quietly. Kaler looked at her in disbelief. Restrained. 3 destroyed warships. Thousands of targeting locks. An entire solar system transforming into a fortress. And this was restraint? Then realization struck him with horrifying clarity. Humanity had never intended to fight fairly. Every Dominion doctrine assumed warfare centered around escalation management, territory, logistics, strategic attrition, controlled force projection. Humans approached war differently. To them, war was not competition. War was survival, and survival justified everything. Admiral, Vel said urgently, Dominion ships are beginning unauthorized retreat maneuvers. Kaler checked the tactical feed. Several outer cruisers had already broken formation, attempting emergency hyperspace jumps away from Sol. None succeeded. The moment their drives activated, invisible distortions spread through nearby space like ripples across water. Every fleeing ship tore apart instantly. Not attacked. Collapsed. Hyperspace itself had become unstable. The bridge lights dimmed again. A new signal appeared across all channels. Human military broadcast. Planetary scale. Kaler expected threats. Demands. Instead, an elderly human voice filled the silence. Calm. Measured. Attention Dominion personnel. Your fleet has entered an extinction response perimeter. Further escalation will result in total force neutralization. Surrender protocols remain available. You have 4 minutes. For minutes, the countdown appeared across every Dominion screen simultaneously. Several officers began arguing openly now. We must surrender immediately. No, the Dominion never surrenders. We can still fight our way through. Fight with what? Kaler listened silently as panic spread around him. This was the true battlefield. Not ships. Not weapons. Psychology. Humanity had engineered terror with surgical precision. Not chaotic fear. Controlled fear. Every reveal carefully timed. Every demonstration escalating exactly enough to break morale before combat even began. The realization sickened him. They had already lost before entering the system. The humans simply waited for the Dominion to realize it. Another officer suddenly shouted from sensor control. Admiral, new contacts. Kaler looked up sharply. The tactical map zoomed outward again. More human fleets. Not arriving from Earth. Arriving from deep space. Thousands more vessels emerging from hidden positions far beyond Sol's outer planets. Long-range fleets. Reserve fleets. Some signatures were so ancient Dominion databases could not classify them properly. One carried visible battle damage older than Kaler's species, had possessed interstellar travel. Vel's expression turned pale. They've been hiding military assets in deep space for centuries. No, Kaler murmured slowly. He finally understood. They've been building fallback positions. The implications were horrifying. Humanity fully expected the possibility of losing planets, losing systems, maybe even losing Earth itself. And they prepared for it anyway. Most species built empires assuming survival. Humans built civilizations assuming catastrophe. That single difference changed everything. 3 minutes remaining, the broadcast voice announced. The massive deterrence vessel continued approaching silently in the background. Closer now. Closer than any object that size should have been able to move. Kaler noticed something else then. The ship's surface was covered in scars. Not construction lines. Battle scars. Deep wounds stretching across armor kilometers thick. His blood turned cold. This thing had fought before. How many wars had humanity survived that the galaxy never learned about? How much worse could they become if truly cornered? The human commander finally spoke again. Admiral Kaler, your species still believes strength means domination. Her eyes hardened slightly. That belief is why civilizations keep disappearing. Kaler stared at her. What are you? For the first time since communication began, emotion crossed the human's face. Not pride. Not anger. Exhaustion. Where what's left after survival becomes the only law that matters. The answer disturbed him more than any threat. Because she believed it completely. Another Dominion ship vanished outside the viewport. Then another. The silent disappearances were somehow worse than explosions. No warning. No resistance. Entire crews erased instantly. One officer collapsed into panic completely. They're playing with us. Why aren't they killing us all already? Nobody answered. But Kaler knew. Because humans wanted witnesses. That was the final layer of their strategy. Fear spread farther through survivors than corpses. The countdown reached 2 minutes. Across the fleet, surrender signals finally began appearing. One ship, then 20, then hundreds, weapons powering down, shields lowering, military pride collapsing under the weight of extinction. But not every commander surrendered. Several Dominion battleships suddenly accelerated directly toward Earth. Desperation. Suicide attack. The bridge erupted instantly. Human defense grid activating. Energy spike detected. Kaler looked toward the tactical feed. and felt his entire body go numb. The sun moved. Not metaphorically. Actually moved. Solar plasma twisted outward in colossal streams as hidden structures near the star ignited simultaneously. Gravitational engines larger than cities awakened beneath the solar corona itself. Humanity had weaponized the system's star. The attacking Dominion battleships never reached firing range. The solar flare hit them first. For one impossible second, the void turned white. Then 5 capital ships ceased to exist entirely. Not damaged. Not destroyed. Erased beneath the fury of a manipulated star. Silence consumed the bridge afterward. Even the panic died. Because everyone finally understood the truth. Humanity was not defending Earth with ships. They were defending it with an entire solar system redesigned for war. 1 minute remaining. The human broadcast announced calmly. Kaler looked around his bridge. Terrified officers. Collapsing morale. Thousands of surrender requests flooding military channels. And beyond the viewport, the massive deterrence vessel slowly aligning itself with the heart of the Dominion fleet. The human commander spoke one final time. If your people continue choosing conquest, this is what follows you home. Then the countdown reached 30 seconds. And Dominion High Command transmitted a direct emergency order across the fleet. Fight to the last ship. The order echoed across the Dominion fleet like a death sentence. Fight to the last ship. For several long seconds, nobody aboard Kaler's flagship moved. The bridge remained frozen beneath crimson emergency lights while the transmission repeated itself automatically through military channels. Fight to the last ship. Even now, with thousands of human weapons aimed directly at them, Dominion High Command still believed pride mattered more than survival. Kaler stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Then he looked at the human commander still standing calmly on screen. She did not appear surprised. That unsettled him most of all. "You expected this," he said quietly. The woman's expression hardened with something older than anger. "We studied your empire for 16 years, Admiral. Your leadership confuses fear with weakness and mercy with hesitation." Her voice remained steady despite the impossible tension hanging between both fleets. "Empires like yours always choose escalation first." Another transmission arrived from Dominion Command. All surrender attempts were now considered treason. Any ship refusing combat protocols would have its command bloodlines erased from Imperial record permanently. Kaler felt sickness crawl through him. Even now, far from the battlefield, their rulers still believed control could overpower reality. Around him, bridge officers exchanged terrified glances. Several had families inside Dominion territory. Others belonged to bloodline houses whose identities stretched back centuries. The High Command understood exactly what they were doing. They were weaponizing fear against their own fleet. But something unexpected happened next. One Dominion cruiser powered down its weapons completely. Then another. Then 20 more. Officers across the bridge stared in shock as surrender signals continued multiplying despite the threat from High Command. Kaler realized the impossible truth before anyone else did. Humanity had already broken the Dominion psychologically. Not through slaughter. Through contrast. The humans had offered mercy while the Dominion threatened its own people. And suddenly millions of Dominion soldiers were asking themselves a question their empire had spent centuries suppressing. Why were the monsters acting more honorable than their rulers? "Admiral," Vel whispered shakily, "fleet discipline is collapsing." She was right. Not from cowardice. From doubt. Dominion commanders who had spent their entire lives believing humanity was primitive prey were now watching human forces demonstrate impossible military superiority, while simultaneously offering surrender terms, medical assistance, and survival. Everything Dominion culture believed about strength was unraveling in real time. Kaler looked again toward the enormous deterrence vessel drifting beyond the battlefield. The thing radiated restrained apocalypse. Humanity possessed enough power to erase the fleet instantly. Yet they still waited, still offered choices. That frightened him more than extermination would have. Because species that killed easily were predictable. Species capable of restraint despite overwhelming power were far more dangerous. Another alarm suddenly erupted across the bridge. Hyperspace rupture detected. Kaler snapped toward the display. New ships were arriving. But these were not human vessels. Dominion reinforcements. Dozens of emergency warships exiting faster than light travel directly behind the main fleet. The bridge atmosphere shifted instantly. Several officers looked relieved. Others looked horrified, because the reinforcements had arrived blind. They had no understanding of what awaited them. The human commander closed her eyes briefly, almost tired. Then she spoke softly into an unseen comm channel. Activate outer response layer. Kaler's blood turned cold. The stars themselves seemed to move. Far beyond the Dominion formation, hidden structures awakened throughout deep space. Entire regions of darkness lit with expanding rings of blue-white energy. Gigantic human defense platforms unfolded from behind dead moons and shattered asteroids, revealing weapons systems so large they dwarfed capital ships. The arriving Dominion reinforcements slowed immediately, then stopped. Every single vessel froze in place as thousands of targeting markers surrounded them instantly. No escape routes, no maneuver space, just overwhelming human control. The reinforcements had entered a kill zone before realizing the battle had already ended. One young Dominion officer whispered something Kaler never expected to hear from his own species. They planned for reinforcements. Not hoped. Not guessed. Planned. Humanity had anticipated every logical military response years before first contact. The human commander turned back toward Kaler. "You see it now, don't you?" she asked quietly. Kaler did not answer, because he did. The ancient warnings suddenly made perfect sense. The danger humanity represented was not merely technological. It was strategic. Humans thought differently from other civilizations. Every species prepared for likely futures. Humans prepared for impossible ones. That made them nearly undefeatable. Another Dominion battleship suddenly opened fire. Not at humans. At its own surrendering cruisers. Blue particle lances tore through disabled vessels instantly, vaporizing thousands of Dominion personnel who had attempted compliance. The bridge exploded into shouting. "What are they doing? They're executing surrendering crews. Imperial enforcement protocols." Kaler felt horror twist through him. High Command was enforcing obedience through massacre. Even here, even now. The human commander's expression changed instantly. Not fear, not surprise, pure fury. The temperature inside the bridge seemed to drop. "Human fleet," she said coldly. Intervention authority granted. What happened next unfolded faster than Dominion minds could process. Human ships moved. Not with the heavy formations Kaler expected. Not organized battle lines. Chaos. Controlled chaos. Thousands of vessels accelerated simultaneously from impossible angles, weaving through combat zones with terrifying precision. Smaller human craft slammed directly between Dominion ships, shielding surrendering vessels from Imperial attacks. Railgun fire erupted across space. Missiles vanished into gravitational distortions before reappearing behind enemy formations. One human destroyer physically rammed a Dominion execution cruiser, splitting itself apart to protect fleeing survivors. Kaler stared in disbelief. The humans were risking their own ships to save enemy soldiers. Why? Why would any species do that? Then he remembered something the human commander had said earlier. "We are defenders." For the first time, he finally understood. Humanity's strength did not come from brutality. It came from what they were willing to sacrifice for others. That was the real terror. A civilization willing to weaponize compassion could survive almost anything. The battle intensified rapidly now. Not between humans and Dominion invaders. Between humans and the Dominion's own ideology. More surrendering ships joined human defensive corridors. Others obeyed High Command and attacked anything attempting retreat. Civil war erupted across the invasion fleet. And through it all, the humans adapted instantly. Every movement precise. Every response prepared. Kaler suddenly realized something else horrifying. Humanity had contingency plans even for this. They had predicted Dominion leadership would sacrifice its own forces rather than admit defeat. Which meant, "Admiral," Vel shouted. New human broadcasts were flooding Dominion communication networks. Not military frequencies, civilian channels. Humanity was transmitting directly into Dominion space. Images filled the screens. Captured footage of surrendering crews receiving medical treatment. Human officers rescuing wounded Dominion soldiers. Prisoners being fed, protected, treated with dignity. The bridge fell silent again, because everyone understood the implications instantly. Humanity was destroying the Dominion narrative in real time. Every citizen back home would see the truth. The so-called savage Deathworlders were showing more honor than the Empire claiming superiority. Kaler almost laughed. Not from humor. From the sheer devastating brilliance of it. Humanity was not merely winning militarily. They were dismantling the ideological foundation of the Dominion itself. The human commander looked directly at him again. "We learned something from our history," she said quietly. "Wars don't end when fleets die. They end when lies do." Another Dominion command ship exploded outside the viewport. But now Kaler noticed something different. Human rescue craft were already moving toward survivors. Even after being attacked. Even while under fire. The humans still rescued enemy crews. The contradiction shattered something inside him. His empire had taught that mercy created weakness. Humanity proved the opposite. Mercy backed by overwhelming strength created loyalty stronger than fear ever could. Suddenly, a priority signal burst across all remaining Dominion systems. High Command. The Supreme Executor himself appeared on screen. His massive armored form trembling with rage. "Admiral Kaler," he thundered. "You will obey final directive protocols immediately. Deploy annihilation payloads against Sol 3. The bridge froze. Kaler felt his blood turn to ice. Annihilation payloads. Planet killers. The High Command intended to destroy Earth rather than admit defeat. Several officers stared at Kaler in horror. Because every commander aboard knew the truth. If they launched those weapons, humanity would erase the Dominion completely. The executor continued shouting. "You will fulfill your duty. Show these creatures the price of defying the Dominion." Kaler slowly looked toward the human commander. She already knew. Of course she did. Human intelligence probably intercepted the order before it even reached the fleet. But what shocked him was her expression. Not fear. Sadness. Like she had hoped it would not come to this. "Admiral," she said softly, "please don't make us do this." The words hit harder than threats ever could. Because for the first time since entering Sol space, Kaler believed her completely. Humanity did not want genocide. But they were fully prepared to commit it if forced. And unlike the Dominion, they would not hesitate twice. Kaler stood slowly from his command throne. Every eye on the bridge fixed onto him. The executor was still shouting demands through the screen. "Fight. Destroy. Obey." Kaler muted the transmission. Silence filled the bridge. Then he made the single most important decision of his life. Disable annihilation systems. Several officers stared at him in shock. "Admiral, that is a direct order." One by one, Dominion weapons officers complied. Planet killer systems powered down across the flagship. Kaler opened a fleet-wide channel. Every surviving Dominion vessel received his face simultaneously. "This is Admiral Kaler of the 9th Expansion Fleet," he said steadily. "Ignore High Command directives. Power down all Extinction-class weapons immediately." Chaos erupted across comms. Some commanders refused instantly. Others hesitated. Then the first battleship complied. Then dozens more. The human commander watched silently as the invasion fleet began disarming itself voluntarily. Kaler continued speaking. "The Dominion told us strength meant conquest." His voice echoed through every remaining ship. "But today we encountered a species powerful enough to destroy us, and wise enough not to. More ships powered down. More weapons deactivated. Across the battlefield, human forces slowly reduced target locks as surrender spread. Kaler took a slow breath. The Dominion taught us fear creates obedience, he continued. But fear also creates monsters. We became one. Even human officers seemed stunned now, because this was no longer surrender. This was rebellion, against centuries of Dominion ideology, against the entire imperial system itself. Kaler looked directly into the camera one final time. The humans were never the threat we feared. His voice hardened. We were. Then he terminated the transmission. Silence returned to the bridge. Outside the viewport, the battle was ending. Human ships guided surrendering Dominion vessels into safe corridors. Rescue operations spread across debris fields. Fires faded slowly against the darkness of space. The massive deterrence vessel remained motionless in the distance, watching, waiting, capable of annihilation beyond imagination. Yet unused. Vel stepped beside Kaler quietly. What happens now? Kaler stared toward Earth. The small blue world looked fragile from here, peaceful, almost defenseless, and somehow that illusion made humanity even more terrifying. Now, he said softly. For the first time in Dominion history, his voice carried something other than certainty. Now the galaxy learns why the ancients were afraid of humans. He paused, then slowly shook his head. No! Far beyond the battlefield, the human fleets still held enough power to erase civilizations. But they chose restraint. They chose mercy. Even after everything. Kaler finally understood the warning humanity truly represented. Not that they were impossible to defeat. That if humanity ever abandoned its mercy, nothing in the galaxy could survive them.